Hello, everybody. It's Heather Nichols here, and wanted to make a video today about parenting and parenting teenagers. I've had a bunch of conversations with people lately about this, and I've had my own challenges with this lately as well. And there's a lot to talk about. And a lot to play with. And I know for me, one of the things with parenting in general has been that I've really wanted to give my kids the freedom to discover who they are, to discover what's true for them, and to really find out like what's true for them, not what I am imposing upon them, not what I want them to be, not what the world wants them to be. And it's such an interesting kind of fine line, because when we give our kids, like I've given my kids a lot of space and a lot of freedom, and sometimes they actually need more than that. Like sometimes they actually need more sort of like guardrails and guidelines and structure, and it really depends on the kid. And I'm not talking about gentle parenting. Like there's a whole movement in the world called gentle parenting, which I'm not going to go super into that, but it really is. I listened to this podcast about it that I thought was really brilliant. I don't even remember the lady, so I apologize. I can't like refer you there if you're interested in that. But just talking about how kids aren't like given the challenge to, like take care of themselves, and they're not like met with expectations and the possibility of actually like really showing up for themselves. And it's sort of like the world. With gentle parenting, the world kind of like accommodates, or like the parents accommodate the kids so much that the kids don't actually end up being quite dysfunctional. And so that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is like freedom of being, like actual being. And it's been such a journey for me over the years, and my two children are very different. They're 16 and 19, and they require different things. And I've found over time that, parenting them the same, like parenting the younger one the way that I parented his brother before him, at that whatever stage he's at, doesn't really work. So you have to really look at the individual child, person, creature that you're dealing with. And of course that's true in all relationships. And recently, there's been such a, like, I've had a lot of, I've given my kids a lot of freedom to explore who they are. And I've also had a lot of, just a very strong desire for them to show up in the world in a particular way that, is, really about like honoring their word and following through on what they say they're going to do, and being respectful of other people and being kind. And, the thing about teenagers especially, they have there's a lot of hormones, there's a lot of, stuff going on in their world. And they really have to explore, they explore so many different ways of being. I remember that, like, I was kind of an ass when I was a teenager. And, they have to explore so many ways of being to find out kind of like what works for them. And I've really bumped up against this with one of my kids recently, because I really discovered that I desired for him to be, like, I've had the expectation and the desire for him to be so much more kind and honoring and respectful, and like honoring of boundaries and following through on what he says he's going to do, than he desires, and it's really tricky to not, like, to be an allowance of that choice, to not make it wrong that he desires whatever he desires. And at the same time to honor my boundaries and my, what's true for me. And this has been one of the sources of great freedom for me that I have to continually come back to again and again as a parent, is to honor me, like for me to honor me, and to be like, I don't allow people close into my world who treat me with disregard. And that actually includes my children. And that's a big one, that's kind of a extreme way to function, I guess, for some people. But for me, it's like, if I am disregarded, dishonored, and disrespected again and again and again and again and again, which is a lot of times teenagers just do that. That's just how they function, then that doesn't work for me. And and the thing is when we don't honor ourselves and we don't like show up for ourselves in any relationship, no matter what it is, demanding that level of respect and honor and kindness for ourselves, then we basically kind of train people to that's not important. It's like you can just never follow through on what you say you're going to do. You cannot show up for our agreements. Sure, that's fine. I'll just let you get away with this. I'll let you get away with that. But what happens is it erodes our relationships with ourselves as parents when we continually allow our children to be disrespectful, dishonoring, and not show up for their agreements, and not show up for what it is that they've said that they're going to do and be. And it's like, it's such an interesting line to walk, to have allowance for what they're choosing and be like, okay, I can't actually change what you're choosing. And that's one of the things I've gotten to recently, is like, I'm done with trying to change the choices that are being made, or trying to influence the choices that are being made. And it's like, okay, cool. This is what's happening. These are the choices that are being made. I'm going to stop driving myself crazy by expecting it to be different. Because every time I expect it to be different, it doesn't. It's not different. And then I get pissed off. But I get pissed off more at me for believing that it was going to be different. And you can apply this to any relationship. And so for me, it's like, okay, this is basically, it's kind of become at this moment an unhealthy relationship. And I'm not going to do that. I'm actually not going to engage with anybody that doesn't follow through with their agreements with me and doesn't honor me. And so I can have total allowance for those choices being made. I can be like, yep, he's a teenager, he's exploring how he wants to show up in the world. He's got a lot that he wants to do, and, doesn't quite think a ton about other people at this point in time. And it's like, okay, that's actually not wrong. I can't change it. And the more I try to change it, the more it actually really damages our relationship. So it's like, okay, I'm going to stop trying to change this, and I'm going to do what works for me, knowing that this is how it is right now. And that's actually what we call trust, is like trusting that they're going to continue to show up the way they've been showing up. Not trusting that they're going to do what you want them to do, but trusting that someone will continue to show up the way they've been showing up makes your life easier. And then you can choose accordingly. And so that's one of the things that's showing up for me now, is like, okay, knowing this is how it is, now how would I like to show up for me, as an honoring of me, and not expecting anything to be different, not expecting him to honor me right now. Hey, it'd be great if that was actually different at another time. But he's got to explore what he's got to explore. And for me, I'm not willing to have that constantly in my life as a source of angst and, turmoil. So choosing my own joy, my own happiness, my own life, and living, creating my world, creating, my reality, and having really clear boundaries on, what is going to work for me, given that this is the current situation. Okay, what do I want to do here? What choices do I want to make that are honoring of me? And with the desire and, the hope that the future can be different, but people don't change because we want them to. They change because they want to. And we cannot change people, and we cannot, make them show up in a way, even if it's going to create greater for them. It's like, they still may not choose it. So now what are you going to do? What are you going to do about that? How are you going to honor you? Whether you are a parent of a teenager or in any relationship. So I hope this has been a contribution to you. It's such a deep and wide conversation, and it's really like something I have to remind myself more and more about all the time. So take care.